You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Well, I want to thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
So, Liam Golden,
That's
correct? So, you are the studio manager for the, let me see if I pronounce this, NIAD Art Center?
Yeah.
NIAD, perfect. Now, NIAD Art Center is located in the heart of Richmond. It employs a staff of artists with master degrees in fine arts, working with over 60 artists with disabilities to create, display, and sell all sorts of different kinds of modern and contemporary art. By creating a warm and welcoming sense of community, NIAD gives the artists a taste of true independence and confidence by showing them that art truly has no bounds. Today, I'm joined by Liam Golden, the NIAD Studio Manager, who for the past 4+ years has lent his assistance to NIAD's diverse collection of artists. So thank you for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So now we are here. Before we get into everything, I want to just give a quick cheers. We are drinking a Pilsner by East Brother Beer Company.
Delicious.
And they're located right here in Richmond. I did a podcast episode with them probably about a month ago now, I think. And Rob Leitner, one of the co-founders and co-owners, really great guy. And their beer is just amazing. So hopefully you like the beer.
I do. I'll have to make a stop by.
Yeah. They have a great tap room, food trucks. They just added a pool table, and they can give you a quick little tour. It's a pretty neat spot, a couple TVs, and it's tucked away near it's in Point Richmond, but it's tucked away in the very back to where it's isolated, but like in a very nice way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just a lot of character. So
Yeah.
definitely worth checking them out. So let's get started and talk about who you are and how you ended up working with the NIAD Studio.
Right on. Well, my name is Liam Golden. I grew up in San Francisco. Always interested in the arts.
What was it about art that really caught your attention?
Oh gosh, I don't just use of imagination. I think I always was imaginative when I was younger, though I didn't have any what I perceived as like a natural talent for art. Other people I could look around, like my brother was really gifted at drawing, in terms of capturing somebody's likeness or something like that. That never was something I could do.
Yeah.
So it always seemed far away. It didn't seem like a real possibility. But
now, was he a painter or a photographer? Maybe
he was a painter. He was he's a bartender now. He didn't really pursue the arts, but he was someone I looked up to in terms of his natural talent. And then just being lucky growing up in San Francisco, you're just surrounded by so many things, so many beautiful things to look at, so many different kinds of people. Just riding the Muni is like an artistic performance,
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why San Francisco is considered one of the most beautiful and arguably the most beautiful city in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that extends when I was growing up there to the people as well. Like I said, right, like hopping on Muni, I loved the diversity of people. I loved all the different kind of viewpoints. I loved just the range of expression that was all around me all the time in San Francisco. And then my mom would take me to museums all the time. She was interested in art, but yeah.
I think that's and I think that's one thing that's underrated is going to museums.
Absolutely.
More and more people need to do that.
Yeah, to just get out and see what's available in your community, to see art that there's a lot even here in Richmond. The Richmond Art Center is a great place. Really good show up right now. But yeah, so yeah, I was lucky to grow up in a city where I was just exposed to all kinds of things, and I grew up in a family that was encouraging looking at different kinds of things and using my imagination. So I was always encouraged to do that. And there's a sister organization in the city, in the Mission District, called Creativity Explored, founded by the same couple, run independently from NIAD. But when I was in high school, I was always interested in the art they were making there. And then I left the Bay Area for a long time, almost 10 years, kind of back and forth, back and forth. But when I came back, I settled in the East Bay, and just started looking around and trying to get involved in things I cared about. Ended up at NIAD.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before that, you mentioned, well, we were talking about
Yeah.
how there's food trucks with
Totally,
beer
yeah.
companies and
Yeah.
food trucks even at wineries now. There's a lot of startup wineries here
Yeah.
in Richmond. There's Four Fools Winery in Rodeo too,
Yep.
and all the food trucks. And so you worked at a food truck before this,
I did.
correct?
I worked at Liba Falafel, represent Gail Lillian. And yeah, I worked there. I took orders and I made French fries, sweet potato fries. And actually, that is where I met my mentor and former boss, Andres Cisneros Galindo. He's an institution at NIAD. He's been working there since they opened 35 years ago.
Wow.
He's the former studio manager, so his roots go real deep there. And at the time, I was while the food truck life was fun, I was desperate to get into something I really was interested in, and something I had studied, and something that I felt like I contribute to more than just taking orders.
Yeah.
So I met him. He would come to the truck. His wife Jackie would always stop by the truck. And one day, or any day you see him, he was just like covered in paint and desperate to get out of the food truck. I was like, "What do you do? What's going on? Where did you come from? Were you just working somewhere? He said, "Have you heard of NIAD? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I know about Creative Explorer. Never heard of NIAD. Okay, well, we could use volunteers. Come by. Maybe you can get involved." And that was the start of it. I just started volunteering. Then I started substitute teaching. Then I got a teaching job, and then eventually studio manager.
Okay. Well, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to keep asking people.
Yeah. Now, you said he was a former studio manager for 35 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, he started as a teacher. I couldn't say. I don't know exactly when he became the studio manager, but
How long has this studio, the art studio, been around?
for about that long, for about 30 to 35 years. I want to say we opened in somewhere between 82 and 84,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. How did that come about?
So it was started by a couple, Elias Katz and Florence Katz. One of them was a psychiatrist, I want to say, maybe psychologist. I don't want to get that wrong, but one of the two. And then the other was an artist. And it was just kind of their brainchild. They were like, we think we need to provide an opportunity for the adults with disabilities in our community to make art at a professional level. And so the first one was Creative Growth, which still exists in Oakland, and then NIAD, and then Creativity Explored. And they've all had a few different locations. But NIAD's always been in Richmond. Actually, NIAD was originally started as it was meant to be the sort of research wing of the three different organizations, but quickly just became another art studio.
Okay.
So they're all run separately now. They're all kind of sisters, but they're run independently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I like to do is really find out why people are here in Richmond in the community, because my office is in Richmond. I live in Richmond too. And what, in your experience, what makes NIAD Center in Richmond special?
Like in specific to Richmond, or what?
Yeah, in specific to Richmond.
What makes it special? I mean, it's a unique. It's special just even in the whole world. There aren't too many of studios like NIAD. and I think you can relate that back to Richmond in that Richmond is um, right now, and I think in its history has always been overlooked in terms of being at the forefront of change and dynamic thinking and bringing or maybe forcing people together in some cases. So I think it relates to um, yeah, like the feeling of possibility, uh, the feeling of taking chance on everybody that's in your community, the feeling of lifting people up, um, and I sense that I don't know I get that sense in Richmond. I haven't been I've my connection to Richmond is this job. I don't live here. I live in Oakland. I grew up in San Francisco, like I said. Um, but the sense of community that extends beyond NIAD into Richmond feels very strong to me, uh, and yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and you were a substitute teacher at NIAD. Is that correct?
That's how I started. Well, I started as a volunteer for a short time, and then a substitute teacher. Yeah.
So how was that transition from substitute teacher to studio manager? What was it like? What did you have to do, and how has that developed over the years?
Um, it's a so yeah, that's a common path. A lot of the staff have begun as volunteers, um, and then um, it- maybe become a substitute teacher, and then from there, when a teaching job opens, often those substitute teachers are often lifted up to be get an actual teaching gig. It's it's a particular kind of environment. It's a particular kind of studio. So it's the kind of job that it'd be hard to find experience elsewhere. You we're lucky in the Bay Area here. We have like I've mentioned, we have two other centers, and there is some cross pollination there. People that have worked at more than one of the centers. But to really get a feel for if someone's going to be a good employee or a good facilitator for the artist, it's best to see them in action. So that's common. So yeah, so substitute teacher, then teacher. Um, yeah, and then it was just like time and interest. You spend
Yeah.
time, you keep showing up, and people start paring back their responsibilities, or people move on, and then you get a chance to step up. So.
Okay. Now let's talk about the artist.
Mhm.
Okay, who are the artists? How do you find them? How do they find you? And and I think we're gonna dive into they make NIAD what NIAD is, correct?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So who are the artists?
The artists are adults with disabilities of various kinds that from Contra Costa County. Um,
So not just from Richmond.
Not just from Richmond. No, they come from all over the county. Yeah, Hercules, um San Pablo, all over the place. So they find us often through the regional center, which is the state and federal funded social service hub. Um, and they're often placed with a social worker, a caseworker, and that caseworker is charged with figuring out something to benefit their lives. And if someone expresses an interest in art, uh, they might come to us. Other people just know about us through reputation, um, but most people come through the regional center, uh, and yeah, some have a lot of experience making art. Some have absolutely no experience making art
Now
when they
you said,
first come.
and they're all mainly adults, or do you also
They're
have
all
children?
adults, yeah.
Okay.
In the past, this is like 10 plus years ago, we did occasionally run workshops for children on the weekends. But but we no longer do that. So yeah, so it's for adults.
Okay. Now, on the website, NIAD says it is redefining contemporary art. So, what exactly qualifies as contemporary art, and how are you redefining it?
Good question. Uh, I would say contemporary art is just that, anything that's being made right now. You know, um, so yeah, any art made by anyone in these times. So and redefining, I think what we're trying to speak to there is there's a lot of language in the art world about, for instance, outsider art or self-taught artist or things like this. Um, and they're used to create different markets and different kind of like stables for different kinds of artists. And it can be convenient for talking about art or for selling art for some people. And typically, our artists have hung out in the world of quote outsider art, right? Um, and we're trying to shift that view um, to say essentially, uh, outside of what, we're just as engaged in the art world as any other professional or working artist. Our artists are not somehow isolated from the world they're living in. Um, and contemporary art is at a point today where it's not even an insider artist might not have the kind of traditional structure of education that led them to becoming a successful artist. So those kinds of boundaries and those kinds of lines are getting more blurred, and we're sort of trying to be at the front of saying we're just all artists. We're just artists, professional artists working alongside other artists, whether they have disabilities or not, is kind of inconsequential. It's just look at the art and judge it based on the art. Um, More and more of our art is being shown alongside, uh, you know, artists without disabilities, artists with more traditional educations. Um, and yeah, it's all in that effort of bringing those worlds together and saying it's all one world instead of saying, oh, you guys belong here and you guys belong here.
So, let's talk about how when one of the artists makes a piece of art, and do they turn around and sell that art? Do you help them sell the art, or you help them display it? How does that work?
Yeah, so the NIAD is organized into a studio, a working studio, and then exhibitions and gallery department. So there's a gallery on site, and there's a gallery director, um, and an an artist working on their own in the world would maybe have their own studio somewhere, and then they would be working to try and find someone to represent their work, a gallerist or somebody like that, who's essentially their, you could call them almost like their manager, right?
Okay.
They're pushing their work. They have a space to show it, and they have a network of people who collect.
Kind of like a book publisher, right?
Yeah,
Similar.
similar. Yeah, yeah. You're handling the sales. You're handling. You also might give input as to like, oh, there's a market for this kind of work, or those certain paintings you made last year, they sold really well to so and so. What if you tried doing those again, or maybe they might help with direction of your work in
Okay.
terms of sales, right? So NIAD is fortunate in that we have that all in house. So we have exhibitions every month in our gallery, and then we have relationships with other um, galleries in New York and on the West Coast um, here, and uh, all of our artists are immediately represented by our gallery. So, in the process of making art, um, just like any other artist not every single thing you make is gonna sell necessarily, but it's all part of working towards those things that do sell. So depending on the artist, uh, and where they are in their process, certain things that they make then are moved along to the gallery, and they take it from there. We have um, a big online store you can get to through our website, and then we have the exhibitions too, and then, like I said, the other galleries that represent some of our artists as well. Uh,
Yeah, I would imagine for artists, it's really about getting exposure, getting your art out there,
hmm
because it's very subjective. You know, what someone may like as far as art, someone else may not like. And with exposing it out there, then you're able to maybe attract people that would have never seen your art that
hmm
really like your art.
Right, and that's what the gallerist can do is be aware of those people and where those people are, and to bring those connections in, to think, oh, this is a really nice painting. I think I know the kind of crowd that might want to look at that might want to buy that, and then they can place that in that place, or they can give that person a call, or they can think of a gallerist that might want to represent them, or they can just say, oh, we're going to put it in our next show, and try and get people to come into NIAD. At this point, I think it's half of our sales, at least half, if not more, come through online. Um, so uh, that's opened up the possibilities a lot. The sales online is like, it's not so we're not so beholden to the space. In the
Have you
past,
sold art to other countries?
all the time, yeah, all the time. Mostly Europe. There's a number of collectors over there that um, that buy certain of our artists regularly.
I find that so intriguing and fascinating
Yeah.
that someone in another part of the world will buy a piece of art that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of our artists just was at the Paris art fair, Paris Book Art Fair, I want to say. I think I got that wrong. But anyway, they're in France, and they did really well over there, and their prices just went way up for it. Um,
Now, why did the center start working with people with disabilities? Was there a specific reason why they wanted to go that route?
I think, well, I never knew the Katzes. So in some ways, I guess it's hard to speak for them, but I would guess that, or my understanding is that it just was something they saw was needed. It was something that they
Well,
saw was needed in the community, and something they believed in. And it was a combination of their interests. It was, again, a husband and wife, and one of whom was, again, either a psychologist or psychiatrist, and the other was involved in the arts. So it was kind of a mashup of their interests.
well, let's twist it up and get your perspective
hmm
on why this art center as opposed to any other art center.
How? Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that?
So, why do you enjoy working at
Oh,
NIAD Art Center as opposed to just any other art
why? Why
center?
do I?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Well, the easiest answer is because the art is so good. Because it is some of my favorite art, and has been for a long time. Um, so that's one. It's just I'm every day uh, inspired and surprised, and just blown away by the the art that's being made. Um, and then there's also what you were mentioning in the intro, the sense of community, the sense of family, um, is very strong there. Uh, and yeah, I would say family. You know, it really feels like a family, and that's something that when you get, if you spend any time there, if you came down there and you spent 3 days, 3 day one, uh, you'd be coming back for probably the rest of your life. I mean, there's just this magnetism of community and family and creativity and imagination that's just like so powerful, um, and incredibly rewarding. Uh, for yeah, so it's just, it pulls you in. For me, it's a personal, like the personal enjoyment of the art is huge.
And I would imagine that the art center and what the artists do impacts their life on a huge, huge scale.
Hmm.
How have you seen it impact their life?
Um, in all kinds of ways, in really practical ways. Some of the more quote successful artists in terms of sales, are are there's a few artists that are um, bringing in more money as artists than any of the quote working artist teachers are. Um,
Wow.
oh yeah, I mean there's artists there that are in the Whitney Museum collection. They show in major museums. They're players in the art world, the the major art world, at large. So there's a whole spectrum, as you would find in really any collaborative art studio. There's going to be some artists working there. They might work. There's artists that work their whole life. They don't get a whole lot of recognition. Um, doesn't necessarily reflect on the quality of their work. And there's other artists that that do get that worldwide recognition. Um, so there's that. There's artists that get to feel that level of support and recognition and engage in that conversation, in the cultural conversation, which is huge. And then on a smaller level, even just again, like reiterating the whole sense of family. A lot of people come. This is a population that is can be isolated, uh, and to have that community, to have a family to go to every day. I've definitely seen people, um, their social life radically changes, and that opens up, um, what they do in their art and the things that they think about, and even just their own feeling of self worth, because they have a large community of people that care about them and expect to see them every day, and are excited to see what they make. And um, so people change socially, people grow professionally as artists. Um,
And
and
would you say to a certain extent it would even be therapy?
Sam and I were talking about this before. I would, so I'm wary of that word. I think it's it can be helpful. It's therapy as much as art is therapy for anyone, is what I would say. Um, we're not thinking of it, the studio, as a place for therapy. Um, it's intended as a professional artist studio.
Maybe we can use a different word, maybe meditative to a certain extent, or
Yeah, for some folks, but other folks are when they're making art, they're super wound up, and they're not meditative at all. So yeah, I think my hesitation with therapy is that again, in terms of going back to that whole like redefining contemporary art, and is that I think there's the immediate misconception about our place is, oh, that's nice, and oh, that's great. People can go spend some time there because otherwise they wouldn't be doing anything worthwhile. And oh, they can go draw some pictures, and that's very nice. In this kind of uh, diminishing way, I think. And so I when people think about therapy, it feels like something we're giving to them, uh, that they're incapable of creating on their own. Um, Whereas it's just the opposite. It's like um, the power is with them, and we're just lucky to be sort of facilitating their own process. So for some people, it might be therapeutic, but again, in the same way that when I make art at home, uh, it can be therapeutic to me, but it can also be stressful. You know, um, so I think it's a whole range. I think it's a whole range of experiences that come along with just like the creative process.
Now, at the studio, do you provide all the material for the artists?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have, yeah, exactly. We provide the space, we provide all of the materials. It's a big open studio, but it's separated into 5 different mediums. So there's a painting area, a mixed media area, a fiber area, printmaking area, and a ceramics area. And then we also do have twice a week, we have independent learning skills classes, things like cooking, current events, things like that.
Okay. So let's talk about a few projects. So let's
Okay.
talk about some of your uh, uh, favorite projects that have come out of the studio and your artist.
Um, wow, let's see. Uh, let's see. Where should I start? There's top of my mind. There's always so many things happening in the studio right now. Something that's exciting. An artist, Jesus Salas. He um, he just started a new style of painting. Um, his process before was drawing school buses. He would fold a paper in half, a piece of paper in half, and he would draw the outside of the bus on the outside of the paper, and then the inside of the paper he'd draw the interior of the bus. And he might do like 10 to 15 of those a day, and he'd have them all stacked in a Ziploc bag, hundreds of them, hundreds of them. He typically wouldn't want you to take them to give to the gallery so that we could then sell them. He'd often squirrel them away in his backpack. Uh, and just from years now of trying different ways to get him interested in painting on canvas, about a couple months ago, he started doing these like number paintings where he'll just uh, he'll just write out the numbers, sometimes like often 1 through 100, but every single number kind of like right up against each other, and it goes in these sort of spirally patterns. Um, so I don't know. It's something uh, it's something that is helpful to see in order to understand. But I guess at the moment it stands out for me because it's one of those sort of breakthrough moments, which is always very exciting. Um, but yeah, what else? Another guy, Miguel, a couple months ago was doing this amazing, uh, what do you call it? Wrestling ring miniature, like a
Like a miniature model?
like a model, yeah, and of like an arena that he did by hand, just with like cheap plywood and hot glue gun and just like scraps he could find and things like that. Um, and
Is that something that is planned to go into the art galleries?
yeah, everything is made. So yeah, everything we try and make space for people to just develop their own process, whatever that is. And with the knowledge that not everything's going to make it to the gallery, uh, but also recognizing that uh, that's an important part of the process. not everything that any artist makes, not everything that you make is going to be sold, right? It's you're practicing, or you're trying out new ideas, or so we give space for that kind of experimentation. Um,
And
and
you try to encourage. It sounds like you try to encourage experimentation.
exactly, for me, for me especially, that's in my area and in the way that I like to teach, and in my education too. That's kind of my background. That's like my bread and butter is experimentation. Really pushing yourself as far as you can go, taking chances, trying things for the first time, just sort of really trusting your instincts, not being afraid of making mistakes. Um,
Now, do you feel like artists in general get stuck into a certain style and that just becomes like their niche or just their style and try to avoid experimenting out? Or do you feel like most artists enjoy experimenting and just creating?
I would say it's probably a compromise of the two. Uh, I think you know any sort of like successful artist in terms of sales or recognition is going to have a style that they're known for. Um, but I think that most artists, even if they have a style they're known for, if they're in the studio on their own studio time, they're going to be experimenting with something, because I can't imagine that you wouldn't be, even if you then still kept up your style with your gallery. You'd be like, oh, I'll make these certain kinds of paintings that I know I'm doing well with, but in the meantime, I want to figure out something new for myself. Or um, yeah, so I think it's different for each artist, but I think it's always a combination on some degree. Yeah.
Now, I would imagine that's also a little bit difficult to teach is how to explore other types of art,
Mm.
because you say you have five different departments
Mm-hmm.
in which you can basically do canvas. You can do can you do ceramic also?
Yeah, we have a ceramics department. Yeah,
Okay, so do you have artists that specialize in only ceramic?
we have. So most of our artists, they're assigned to one department per day. We change every 4 months or so. We switch up the schedule. Most people come in at least 3 days a week. A lot of folks come in all 5 days. Um, so typically, people are moving around. They're doing maybe ceramics 2 days, maybe painting 2 days, maybe fiber one day. Um, but those artists who have been there a while, or even if they haven't been in there in a while, and they just happen to come in or quickly develop um, a particular unique process or a particular style or something they just really like to work on, then those artists will kind of get more settled into that routine. And that's a conversation. So every 4 months, we ask the artist, what do you want to do for the next 4 months? Who do you want to work with? What kind of materials do you want to try, or so on, that kind of thing. But certain artists, um, some people, like Marlon, he paints, and that's all he does. He just paints. Um, Matt Wilson, he draws. That's mostly what he does. He draws. Sylvia mostly does ceramics, but so people, once they get to a point, will become a certain kind of artist often. Jeremy um, is a really, really unique artist in the studio. He makes sculptures out of paper. He makes accurate, workable syringes, handcuffs, and things he calls lamps that don't really look like lamps, but the syringes and the handcuffs do look and work as those things, and it's
And
entirely paper and glue.
wow.
Um, Really remarkable, and that's something that he discovered himself. That's something, nobody taught him how to do that, but it's something he just does. So, so whomever he's with, even if he's switching teachers or areas, departments or whatever, he's doing his lamps or his packages or
Yeah. Now, are you guys a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you raise funds to operate? I assume donations.
Yeah, friendly folks like yourself. Yeah, donations. We also every artist pays to be there. Most artists, like 90% or more artists are paid through the regional center, so they're not paying themselves. It's subsidized, but they pay to be there each day, and then grants, uh, and then art sales. Um,
And can people go onto the website and donate that way?
Absolutely. You can donate directly on the website. Uh, you can go buy art. There's so much good art through the website. Um, there will be a fundraiser coming up. Our big fundraiser is going to be March 10th, I believe. No, March 3rd. Hasn't been solidified, but that's an event we throw at actually in Emeryville, the Cliff Bar headquarters. It's going to be a little different this year. We're still figuring it out, but that's a fun opportunity. You buy a ticket, you get a piece of art. There's like a little party. Um,
I assume a meet and greet with the artists if you want
yeah,
to.
we try and get as many artists out there as possible. There's also, of course, the monthly exhibitions. Um, but most of our money comes through the regional center, grants, and then art sales. The art sales have gone up a lot in the past 5 to 10 years, so that's been increasing.
Yeah,
Been great.
probably internet, right?
Through the internet, and thanks to the gallery director uh, has really taken us to another level of sales and connection to the art world.
So you say the exhibitions are held every month?
Yep, every second Saturday typically. Yeah.
Okay. And then is there a cost for entry or is it free?
Oh
to
no,
get
it's free. It's free to come in. There's always some beer, wine, and snacks. There's usually some music, DJ often, sometimes a live band. Yeah, it's always a good show. Sometimes organized by in-house gallery staff, often organized by outside curators and artists. There's always a section of the gallery that is an artist, a non-NIAD artist, which is nice, brings different people in and just kind of creates a different conversation between different kinds of art.
Yeah. So when's the next exhibition?
The next exhibition opens. There's one up now that opened 2 weeks ago or last weekend. Sorry. Yeah, last Saturday. So that'll be up through the 3rd of November, and the next one will open on the 3rd. No, it opens on the 3rd, but the reception's on the 11th. Saturday, 11th, from 1 to 4. And it's called The Witnesses, organized by Cliff Hangst and Scott Hewicker. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. But it sounds like an interesting exhibition. They are two longtime San Francisco-based artists, and they've invited a bunch of other Bay Area artists to choose objects or art pieces that they're then going to organize in what they describe as a kind of like a cabinet of curiosity kind of style exhibition. It's called The Witnesses. It's based off of the Surrealist galleries from the Menil collection in Houston, Texas. And a cabinet of curiosities, if folks don't know, is like picture like a like 18th century naturalist exhibition. Like a chest of wonders. Like you open up this cabinet and there's like like a dragon bone and some like a dodo bird skull and some sea urchin or things like that. And it was a way in those days of sort of exhibiting like your reach in the world and like your appreciation of natural beauty and things like that. So it'll be this interesting connection of like artifacts and art pieces from a number of different people, including NIAD artists. And then there's going to be
And where's that located?
our gallery.
Yep.
Our gallery is located at where we are all located, which is 551 23rd Street in Richmond, California. And again, that opening is November 11th, 1 to 4. And the other part of the opening is Rebecca Jansen, a new artist, relatively new at NIAD. She's got a new animal alphabet print series where she just worked with the printmakers at NIAD to put together a series of animals based on the alphabet, one for each letter of the alphabet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good too.
Neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're out of time now, but I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. We will go ahead and link up the website.
Great.
We'll tell people go and donate, go buy art.
Buy the art.
Buy the art, support the artist, and
you're gonna find something you like.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll go ahead and link up the exhibition events and the halls.
Great.
And anything else you want to throw in and add?
Just thanks to Marc Guzman. Thanks for having us. Yeah, just come out to see us. Go online, buy art. Like I said, look around. If you go to the website and you go to our store, there's just, you won't believe the amount of art you find, and I know you'll find something you like. So treat yourself to something beautiful and support great artists.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman, and thank you to Liam Golden for taking the time to share the wonderful things NIAD Art Center is doing. Their website is NIADart.org. That's spelled NIADART.org. The link is in the description. There you can donate directly to the Art Center, or you can purchase art from their online store and help support the artists directly. Once again, thank you for listening, and don't forget to rate the podcast. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.